Yeah, it's impossible for me to get fat. I cannot get fat. Despite my best efforts, I couldn't do it. Now, I know that sounds like a boast or a brag. It's really not. And it's not because anyone can do this. Okay? Remember this sentence for the rest of your life. You only need to get lean once. With this way of eating, you only need to get lean one time. Because you will not put it back on. You won't put it on, can't put it back on. It would be virtually impossible. Now, I want you to watch the video all the way to the end because there is one way to mess this up, and I need to cover that, but it's extremely unlikely that you'll actually do that. So it's not really something to worry about, but watch all the way to the end because I need to cover that aspect. But before I go, because I always forget this, like and subscribe. Forget every video. Everyone else says it, every other creator, and then I forget to tell people. Just click the button, please. This all comes down to the fact that carbohydrates, despite what you've heard, very rarely ever turn into fat. And I know I talk about this in almost every video, but it is crucially important since most people actually believe this. Up to 99% of your stored body fat is dietary fat. That's where it came from. It did not come from carbohydrate. And at most in human beings, 1 to 2% of it originated from carbohydrate and was converted to fat. That's how inefficient this process is. The process is called de novo lipogenesis, and folks, we just do not do it very much. Human beings don't do that. The body will always do the most efficient thing with what you give to it. And since fat is already fat, when you do eat in a caloric excess, the body simply takes some of the dietary fat that you consumed and puts it straight into the fat cell. It doesn't go through all the hoops and the machinery of turning carbohydrates into fat because there's already fat there. It just moves the fat into the fat cell. Very efficient, it doesn't cost any energy for the body to do that. Whereas turning carbs into fat, it is extremely inefficient, extremely difficult. And we're going to talk about that process today. The process of how is it that carbs can turn into fat. And you're going to see just how bloody difficult it is for this ever to happen. And you will see why 99% of your body fat is dietary fat and why carbs don't really turn into fat in any meaningful amount. It's so rare. Then we're going to get to the one way that you can mess it up at the end. But for all intents and purposes, you only need to get lean once if you're eating a very low-fat diet. Let me clear this up first. For me, low-fat means 10% of your or less of your daily calories. I hear some people talking about they're on a low-fat diet and they're on 25% of their calories are fat. Sorry, that's not low-fat at all, and you're probably not going to succeed at this. I'm on 5%. Because I lift and I want to build muscle, I'd have a bit more protein. So my diet is like 70% carbs, mostly starch, 25% protein, 5% fat. I feel great, feel better than ever, feel better. I'm almost 45 years old. I feel better now than I did in my 20s. In my 20s, I was low carb. This is much better. The results are better. I feel better, sleep better. It's all pros and no cons. I can't think of any cons because I really love the food. Anyway, I'm digressing. I want to take you through the process of turning carbs into fat so you can see, I can prove to you that you only need to get lean one time. Okay, I'll put the graphic up on the screen. This is from page 9 of my free book, Eat Lean, Get Lean. Let me get it up here. Okay, I created this diagram to show the different stages of turning carbs into fat and why it's virtually impossible and not something you need to worry about. Carbs, if you're overweight, carbs are not your problem. I know what you've heard. I heard it too. I believed it. I lived it. It's not true. We have much better data now than we ever did before. Okay, so the first thing you need to do is eat beyond maintenance. Okay, I think we all agree on that. You have your maintenance calories. If it's 2,500, You don't store anything. Carbs certainly won't convert into fat. Even fat won't get stored as fat if you're eating what your body needs energy-wise every day. So you've got that first. Now, let's say you're on a very low-fat diet, as I am. What happens if you do overconsume carbohydrate? Well, it does get stored for sure, but it gets stored as glycogen. So you have these storage containers, or I think of them like tanks that fill up. It's in your muscle and liver. And the average human has about 600 grams of storage capacity. That's 2,400 calories worth. So 500 grams in the muscle, 100 in the liver maybe. And so if you overeat, that's where it goes. Again, the body always does the most efficient thing with what you give it. It's not going to turn that into fat. It already has a very simple, energy efficient way of storing it. So it just puts it straight into the muscle and the liver. And even if your glycogen is, say, 50% full, okay, that still leaves you, let's say 300 grams, or 1,200 calories. Now, you're not going to overconsume 1,200 calories of pure carbohydrate in a single day. So you see that most people don't have full glycogen levels. Even bodybuilders aren't walking around with full glycogen. And I'm not a bodybuilder as such, but I lift almost every day. So I'm constantly draining my glycogen levels down. And even I won't have full glycogen at any point. Bodybuilders before a show have to carb up, and they're really stuffing the carbs in to get this done. Cyclists and everything, you hear about them carbing up before a big race. They really have to stuff the carbs in, and none of it converts into fat. You see, none of it converts into fat because it takes so much to fill it up. But okay, so you agree with me, I'm sure, so far, that you can go at least 1,000 calories over per day and not store any carbs as fat, okay? But hypothetically, let's say that you did. I need a drink. Swig of water for the working man. Okay. Hypothetically, let's say that you did it and you consumed 2,000 grams of carbs. By the way, this is a starch-based diet I'm talking about. So you're talking of trying to overconsume 2,000 calories of potatoes, bread, rice, couscous, pasta, peas, corn. You couldn't get it done, really. In the real world, you can't do it because you'd be so full you would probably vomit before you got to that stage. But we're talking hypothetically, so let's go with it. When you go above, you saturate your glycogen and you keep consuming carbohydrate, sure, you can get a little bit of de novo lipogenesis, carbs turning into fat, but it's severely limited by an increase in carb oxidation. What that means is just carb burning, your body burning more carbs for energy. So when you fill up your glycogen, your body just starts ramping up carbohydrate oxidation. And you'll notice that when this happens, your body temperature increases, you get very warm, you want to peel your clothes off. You're in bed, you stick your foot out under the duvet because you're too warm, your body's burning it off. Now, why does it burn it off as opposed to turning it into fat? It's easier. Again, the body's always efficient. It would rather just give you a little bit more energy than go to the bother of converting glucose into fat. Just go to Google at some point and just Google an image of a glucose molecule and a fatty acid, and you'll notice they don't look anything like each other. It's not easy turning one into the other. Therefore, the body will just increase carb oxidation. That's what's going to happen. So it's going to severely limit the amount that's left over to be turned into fat. If there's anything at all, maybe there's a measly little drop. But there's even more. There's another buffer kicks in. Of whatever remaining calories there are, 23% of those are lost in the conversion process. Because it's so bloody difficult to turn that glucose into fat, you lose about a quarter of whatever remaining energy there is. So how much fat can be, after you pass through all these buffers, how much fat is actually going to be created? Little. I mean, I've seen one study where they severely overfed people carbohydrate in a low fat context. Folks, they created, after 3 or 4 days, they started. So they got away with it for 2-3 days. Nothing happened, no fat. Then day 3 or 4, I think it was, they did start the novo lipogenesis, and they created a whopping 5 grams of fat per day. That's a teaspoon, with ridiculously overfeeding people with carbohydrate. Now, in studies like that, they're not real world conditions. They can't get the people to eat that many calories from carbs. So what they have to do is they have to give them sugar drinks on top of their meals. Sugar's a carbohydrate, so they have to really stuff them with sugar food and then give them loads of sugar, because they can't get it done. And that's why I'm saying to you, you can't get it done either. I can't get it done. If you eat a starch-based diet, my protocol is roughly 70-20-10 carbs, protein, fat. Now, as I've said previously, me personally, it's 70-25-5. Okay, starch is your number one carbohydrate. It's going to take up most of that 70%. Then 20% is your protein, and it's only lean meats. And then you have 5 or 10% fat. In that context, you cannot eat 5,000 calories a day, 4,000 calories a day. You're talking mostly potatoes, rice. Have you ever tried to overeat these things? You can't do it, which is why in these studies, if in these studies they could get these people to eat that much, they would just have them eat that much. They can't get it done, so they have to give them the sugar to hit those calories. So in real world conditions, if you're eating like me, you can't get it done, and therefore, like I said at the beginning of this video, you cannot get fat again. You only need to get lean once. It will be impossible for you to ever put it back on. Get lean one time and forget about it. You're lean for life eating this way and enjoying your food. You're eating your sandwiches and wraps and baguettes and rice with seasoned chicken, and you can have the occasional treat. It's no problem, because you go right back onto the low fat the next day, and any fat that you did, if you did gain any, it comes right back off. That's it. You're set for life. So at the beginning of this video, I say, it's impossible for me to get fat, and it sounds like a brag. I hope it doesn't, but if it did, it's not. It's just the way the human body works, and we're all the same in this respect. There is no difference. Your body will not turn, human beings don't readily turn carbs into fat. Now, I said I wanted you to watch all the way to the end because there is one way to mess it up, and I just kind of mentioned it. Sugar. I'm not a sugar guy, I'm a starch guy. Starch is beautiful anyway. You're craving starch. Your body wants the glucose. You don't need to give it a lot of sugar. Your cravings for sugar will go away once you eat a starch-based diet anyway, because you're giving your body the glucose it wants, so it stops the craving for other sweet things. But theoretically, sure, if you were to eat a bunch of sugar, you could bring your calories sky high and get into de novo lipogenesis. It still wouldn't be easy. I mean, I tried to eat 2,000 calories worth of sugar alone, wouldn't be very easy, and you need to do it consecutive days in a row in order to start turning that into fat. So even then, it's not easy. And you don't need to avoid sugar at all costs. If you want a little bit of sugar on your oatmeal, you want a bit of honey on your oatmeal, that's fine. I'm all for that, no problem. It's a few grams of sugar. It won't harm you. It won't harm your results. But conceivably, the only way that you can mess this up if you start loading up on sugar. Okay? Apart from that, in real world conditions, 70-20-10 diet, you will never, ever, ever put it back on. It will be impossible for you to get fat in the same way that it's impossible for me to get fat. And I'm in my off season right now. And I've been in off season for over 3 months, and I've still only put on a little bit of fat. Now, if you don't understand what that means, get my free book, Eat Lean, Get Lean. I cover what my off season is, and at the time of the year where I let myself have the pizzas and the burgers and so on. Not every day by any means, but I tell you, there's a section towards the end of the book. It's called How I Set Up My Year. And it's got my cutting phase in there, my maintenance phase, and then my off season. And it's something I would highly recommend, actually. I mean, I know most personal trainers want you to eat clean all of the time. I don't think that's realistic. I don't recommend it. You have to have these times where you have stuff that you wouldn't normally have, and it's perfectly all right. And if you're still eating your low-fat diet 90% of the time on your off season, you'll notice that most of that, any fat that you accumulate starts to come back off. So I have a big cheat night once a week, sometimes twice a week in my off season, and they are massive, huge. I mean, I don't like to use the word binge, but they're basically big binge sessions, and there's even sometimes alcohol in there as well. So there's food and booze, and it's crazy. And but I get away with it, and you can get away with it too. Anyway, if that doesn't make sense, get the book. Scroll towards the end of the book. The way that I set up my year, I think it's called. But apart from that, that's us. We're done. I'm always available for coaching. If you only need to get lean once. So if you want someone to create your meal plan and exercise plan, by the way, exercise is not 100% mandatory. If you can get some steps in, I have some older people who don't want to go to the gym and so on, but you'll just go for a walk. I have coached so many people who just walk and that's it, because it's mainly about the food. Anyway, if you want me to coach you, I do a thing called a 12-week shred, and I'll create everything for you, and I stay with you every day for 12 weeks. You can speak to me at any time, and I'll get you lean that one time, and that's it. You wouldn't have to get lean ever again, because you'll love the food and you'll eat this way for the rest of your life, and you're set. It's done. So consider the 12-week shred, and you never need to get fat ever for the rest of your life, because you're eating the way the human body was designed to eat. Now, I love you, and there's nothing you can do about it.